Am I the asshole for telling my mom it wasn't cool to post photos of my brother in a hospital bed for his birthday? My brother Mark, a 35-year-old man, was in a terrible car accident about a year ago. He was driving home from work when a car ran a red light and slammed into him at an intersection. The crash was horrific. He ended up trapped in the wreckage and the paramedics had to cut him out of the car. He was rushed to the hospital with multiple broken bones, internal injuries, and severe lacerations. It was a miracle that he survived, but the recovery process was long and grueling. Mark is one of the strongest people I know. Even after everything he went through, he managed to save his son, Ethan, who was in the car with him at the time of the accident. Ethan escaped with just a few bruises, but that was because Mark shielded him during the crash. I've always seen my brother as a hero, but what he did that day took it to another level. The doctors said that if he hadn't acted so quickly, things could have been much worse for Ethan. Mark's recovery was brutal. He spent weeks in the ICU, followed by months in a rehabilitation center. There were multiple surgeries, physical therapy sessions, and countless setbacks. He was unrecognizable when he was first admitted to the hospital, his face swollen and bruised, his body covered in cuts and bandages. We had a family group chat to keep everyone updated, and during those difficult months, my mom would send photos to show his progress. Some of those images were incredibly hard to see. Mark lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, his face barely recognizable. But we understood why she shared them. It was her way of letting us know he was still fighting. Thankfully, Mark made an amazing recovery. He's walking again, and while he still has some scars, both physical and emotional, he's trying to move forward and rebuild his life. So, when his birthday came around a few weeks ago, it was a big deal for all of us. We were grateful he was still here, and we wanted to celebrate how far he's come. My mom and aunt both posted birthday messages for him on Facebook. They wanted to show how proud they were of his strength and resilience, which I completely understand. But they included photos of him at his absolute worst. Pictures taken right after the accident, when he was still in the ICU. These were images that showed him bruised, swollen, and unconscious, hooked up to various machines. It was one of those photos that you wish you could unsee. Something that no one, including Mark, would ever want to be reminded of. When I saw those posts, my heart sank. I knew they meant well, but it felt wrong to me. Those photos weren't just a reminder of how far he's come, they were a painful reminder of how close we came to losing him. They took me right back to the hospital, sitting in the waiting room, praying that he'd pull through. I couldn't help but think about how Mark would feel seeing those pictures, how they might take him back to a place he's been trying so hard to move past. I reached out to my mom and aunt privately. I tried to be gentle, explaining that I understood they were trying to show how much Mark had overcome, but that using those particular photos felt like they were highlighting his trauma instead of celebrating his recovery. I suggested they take the photos down and use a recent picture of him instead, something that showed his strength without dragging up those memories. Their reaction was not what I expected. They said I was overreacting and that I was missing the point. My mom said she wasn't pleading for sympathy but wanted to show how much Mark had been through and how strong he is. My aunt chimed in, saying that if Mark had a problem with the photos, he could ask them to take them down himself. They didn't seem to understand why it would be uncomfortable for him, or for the rest of us, to see those images plastered all over social media. But here's the thing. Mark would never ask them to take them down. He's not the kind of person who likes to make waves. He'll grin and bear it even if something bothers him, especially when it comes to family. I felt like it was my responsibility to say something, because I know how much he's been through, and I didn't want him to feel exposed or embarrassed on his birthday. It wasn't about being embarrassed by his injuries, it was about respecting his privacy and the journey he's been on. Now my mom and aunt are upset with me. They think I'm trying to police their posts and that I'm overstepping by telling them what they can and can't share. I can't shake the feeling that I did the right thing by standing up for Mark, but part of me wonders if I should have just let it go. I know they're proud of him, and I know they love him. But I feel like there's a difference between sharing his story and sharing his most vulnerable moments without his consent. So, Am I the asshole for confronting my mom and aunt and telling them that using those photos was inappropriate? Should I have kept quiet, or was I right to ask them to think about how those images might make Mark feel?